The rain hadn't stopped in 3 days. And the city outside Emily Carter's window looked like it was drowning. She sat curled on her worn leather couch, surrounded by crumpled notes and dead leads. A half-full glass of red wine forgotten on the table. Her phone lay face down beside her laptop. Silent, lifeless, like everything else lately. Then, just as the clock on the wall ticked over to 3:03 a.m., the screen lit up. One buzz. Unknown number. No caller ID. She stared at it. Something about that time. It itched in her skull like a half-remembered nightmare. She picked it up. One photo. That was all it showed. No caption. No explanation. Just a child, maybe 6 or 7, standing barefoot in the middle of a fog-choked forest, staring directly into the camera. Her dress was soaked and torn at the edges, her arms dangling limp at her sides. Her eyes were pitch-black voids. And behind her, if you looked closely, barely visible through the trees, there were more figures. Blurred. Watching. Emily blinked and looked again. The background seemed closer than before. Then the message appeared. Come find me. Duskvale. Follow the crows. Emily sat frozen, her skin crawling, every instinct screaming delete it. But she didn't. Instead, she opened her laptop, the glow casting eerie shadows across her face, and typed, Duskvale. Nothing. No coordinates. No maps. Not even a Wikipedia stub. Just one result. Buried in a forgotten forum dated 2008. Duskvale is cursed. Vanished in 1972. No survivors. Don't look for it. Don't say its name. The power flickered. Her screen glitched. For a split second, the girl's face reappeared, closer. Smiling. She slammed the laptop shut and stood, heart pounding like footsteps in her chest. She told herself it was a prank. A hacker. A weird viral campaign. But something deep inside her, something ancient and cold, whispered the truth. This wasn't random. It was calling her. By morning, she had packed a bag, booked a rental car, and called Daniel. You want to go where? He asked, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Camera gear already strapped over one shoulder. Somewhere that might not exist. She replied. That's exactly why we have to. He looked at her, concerned. This isn't just another abandoned asylum story, is it? Emily didn't answer. She just showed him the photo. He stared at it for a long time. She's looking right at me. He finally said, voice barely a whisper. I swear she just blinked. By noon they had gathered the rest of the crew, Rachel. Always rational, Jason, the skeptic who never backed down, and Tommy, sweet and superstitious, who brought sage in a Ziploc bag and whispered prayers under his breath the entire ride. They followed an old forest road that twisted through the hills like a scar. GPS died 30 miles in. The trees grew thicker, hungrier. At some point the path turned from gravel to mud to nothing at all. They got out of the car. Fog curled between the trunks like fingers. Rachel was the first to hear it, a faint lullaby. Off-key, echoing between the trees. Do you hear that? She asked. No, Jason snapped. And neither do you. But Emily heard it too. A girl's voice, soft, singing something old. They walked deeper into the woods. Above them, crows circled, silent, watching, too many for comfort. The forest grew colder, though it was summer. The wind didn't blow, but the trees swayed anyway. Then they saw it, half hidden behind overgrown roots and ivy. A rotting wooden sign. Tilted and cracked, as if it had been clawed by something with nails. Welcome to Duskvale. Founded 1871 population? No one spoke. Even Jason looked pale now. The forest swallowed them whole. Behind them, unnoticed, the fog moved, and somewhere in its depths, something moved with it. Something too tall, too thin, walking on legs that bent the wrong way. That night, Emily would dream of eyes in the trees, of bones beneath her feet, and the girl in the photo, whispering from behind her ear. You came, now you can't leave. The air changed the moment they passed the sign. There was no wind, no birdsong, not even the distant rustle of leaves. Just silence, dense and unnatural, like the forest was holding its breath. The group walked slowly, each step swallowed by damp earth and muffled by the thick fog that clung to their legs like hands. Daniel was snapping photos, the shutter sound far too loud in the hush. Emily walked beside him, her hand brushing his once, needing to feel something real. The others followed behind, Rachel muttering that this was stupid, Jason chewing gum like it was a defense mechanism, and Tommy, whispering prayers again. Louder now. They walked for what felt like an hour. Then too. No cell service, no GPS, and yet, somehow, they were still following a path. A narrow dirt trail, twisted like veins, that led deeper and deeper into the forest. The deeper they went, the stranger the trees became. Gnarled and towering, some bent low like they were bowing to something unseen. One was split down the center, like it had been clawed open. Another bled thick sap the color of black ink. It was Jason who finally said what they were all thinking. Have we been here before? Everyone stopped. Because they had. Ahead of them, unmistakably, was the same broken tree with the crooked branch like a hand pointing left. The same pile of stones shaped like a crude face. Even the same tangled crow feather, stuck to a wet leaf. They hadn't been walking forward. They'd been walking in circles. Rachel cursed. This is bull's teeth. We need to turn around. But when they did, when they turned back the way they came, the path was gone. Just fog, trees, silence, and then the crows began to scream. Not one or two, but dozens, above them. All at once, bursting from the branches like they'd been shaken awake. They flew in spirals, frantic, desperate, as if something was coming. Something worse than them. Run, Emily said. She didn't shout it. She knew it, like an instinct, like a voice inside her head. So they ran. Branches slapped their faces. Roots clawed at their ankles. The forest seemed to close in behind them, tighter with every step. Somewhere, behind the noise of their footfalls and crashing underbrush, there was something else, heavy breathing, wet and low, as if something massive was dragging itself just out of sight. Then they saw it. The village. It appeared like a mirage through the trees, rows of crooked houses, sagging and swallowed by vines. Roofs collapsed in on themselves like rotting teeth. A rusted weather vane spun slowly though there was no wind. And in the center of the clearing, a stone well with a rope that dangled into blackness. Duskvale. It shouldn't exist. It wasn't on any map. It was wiped from every record. But it was real, and it was waiting. They stumbled into the clearing. Breathless and muddy, Daniel dropped to his knees, snapping a photo of the main house, its shutters hanging loose like broken jaws. Emily turned in slow circles, heart pounding, skin crawling. Something about this place, it remembered them, like it had been expecting them. Then Tommy screamed. They spun around. He stood at the well, pointing down, his eyes wide, hands shaking. There's someone, moving down there. A splash. A whisper. Then silence again. Jason pulled him back. We're not sticking around. Find shelter. Get out of this fog. They chose the least broken house. It had a porch that creaked under their weight. A door that swung open without a sound. Inside, it smelled like mold and something sweet and rotting. Dust coated every surface. But there were footprints in it, small ones. There. In the living room was a single rocking chair. And on it, a child's doll with a cracked porcelain face, turned toward the window. Its eyes had been gouged out. Emily picked up a book from the floor. A diary, the name scrawled in faded ink. Lily Moore, age 8. Her heart nearly stopped. That was the name of the girl in the photo. Thunder cracked. The door slammed shut on its own. And upstairs, the sound of a second rocking chair creaking began. Back and forth, back and forth. No wind, no one there, just that sound, rhythmic, patient, as if something upstairs was waiting for them to come up. Or, come down. The room grew colder the moment Emily opened the diary. The pages were yellowed and brittle. The handwriting a child's, but jagged, like it had been scratched in a hurry. Or through tears. She sat cross-legged on the floor beside the fireplace while the others moved through the house, searching for supplies, or a way to leave. Or maybe just a reason not to panic. The first page was simple. My name is Lily Moore. I am 8. Mommy says I must stay inside when the crows scream. Emily turned the page slowly. Today the well spoke again. It told me secrets. It said the sky has bones in it. I told Mommy but she slapped me. Said the voices are not real. But they are. The house creaked around her like it was listening. A gust of wind pushed against the windows. But the fog outside never moved. Emily felt eyes on her. But when she looked up, no one was there, except the doll. Its eyeless face still pointed at the window. Unmoved, unblinking. She flipped deeper into the diary. They took Jonah last night. He tried to run through the trees. They don't let you leave. Not once you see her. The girl in the woods. The one with no eyes. She whispers to me in my dreams. Tonight is the offering. I don't want to go. But the village says we must. I think they're going to put me in the well. Emily's fingers went numb. The room suddenly felt very wrong. Behind her, something creaked upstairs. The slow groan of the rocking chair again. Back and forth. Back and forth. She stood quickly, nearly dropping the diary. Meanwhile, Tommy sat in the corner of the kitchen, whispering something to himself. He hadn't moved in 10 minutes. Rachel approached him carefully. Tommy, you okay? He didn't look up. His hands were pressed over his ears. His eyes wide. They're not crows, he whispered. They just wear their skin. Rachel backed away slowly. Upstairs, Daniel called out. Guys, you might want to see this. They gathered at the base of the staircase. Where the shadows grew darker the higher they climbed. Each step groaned, as if warning them back. The room at the top was a child's bedroom. Torn wallpaper, a rusted crib, drawings on the walls, dozens of them. All in red crayon. A girl with no eyes. Over and over. Standing in the forest. Standing beside the well. Standing in the doorway. In one picture, she was holding hands with a taller figure, a woman. Maybe. In another, the villagers stood around the well. All with hollow, black eyes. And then there was the final drawing. The house. Their house. Tonight, 5 stick figures drawn standing in the doorway. And behind them, something tall. Thin. Wrong. With antlers like broken tree limbs. It had no face. Just a hole. Jason looked away. This is messed up. We're leaving. I don't care if we have to walk through the fog all night. But then the lullaby began again. This time, it wasn't distant. It was inside the house. Sung by a child. Soft. Sweet. Directly beneath their feet. Coming from the well. And with it came footsteps on the stairs. Slow. Wet. And dragging. The lullaby was still playing when the lights flickered. Except, there were no lights. The house hadn't had power in decades. And yet, a dim, sickly glow now pulsed through the walls, like the house itself was breathing. Emily stepped backward into the hallway, her eyes darting toward the stairs. The others followed in silence, each one frozen in place by something unseen but deeply felt. The lullaby continued beneath their feet, impossibly soft, as if the wood of the floorboards remembered a child's voice. Rachel clutched Tommy's arm. He was shaking violently now, muttering fragments of old prayers, switching between English and Latin as if hoping one would stick. And then the singing stopped. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, tap, tap, tap. From below, the basement. Jason moved first. Nope, we're not doing this. This is where people die. But Emily was already heading down the stairs. It wasn't bravery. It was something else. A pull. As if her very bones remembered this house. As if the whispers in the wood were calling her by name. The basement door groaned as she pushed it open. Cold air spilled out like fog, wrapping around her ankles. The others followed, reluctantly, flashlights trembling in their hands. The stairs descended into blackness. The light refused to reach the bottom. Halfway down, Emily saw it. A figure, standing at the far end of the room. Small, still. A child. Lily? The beam of her flashlight cut through the dark. But when it reached the spot where the figure had stood, it was gone. Then the walls began to whisper. Dozens of voices, overlapping, impossible to understand at first, then clearer. We told her not to follow the crows. She opened the door. Now it won't close again. Daniel grabbed her arm. Emily, we need to leave, now. But Emily didn't move. Because she was no longer in the basement. She stood in a clearing. The sky above her choked with black clouds. Around her, villagers in tattered clothes stood in a wide circle, their eyes leaking shadows. In the center was the stone well, and the girl, Lily. She stood with her arms outstretched, face lifted toward the sky, humming the lullaby, but the sound wasn't coming from her mouth. It was coming from beneath the ground. Emily stepped forward. The villagers turned to look at her all at once. Their heads moved too slowly, like marionettes on rusted wires. Then, the ground opened beneath Lily's feet. A great cracking, like bones splitting, and a pair of hands reached up, long, skeletal, made of roots and teeth. Emily screamed, and suddenly, she was back in the basement. On the floor, shaking, Daniel shouting her name. "You blacked out," he cried. "You just stood there and started talking in someone else's voice." She tried to speak, couldn't. Her throat was raw. Rachel knelt beside her. "What did you see?" Emily couldn't answer. She could only whisper one word. Her. They left the basement. But the house did not let them go. As they climbed back upstairs, every mirror in the house shattered one by one. The doll in the rocking chair now sat at the top of the stairs, smiling. Its face no longer cracked. Its eyes, black glass. Tommy stared at it too long. When they entered the living room, he collapsed, screaming, over and over, "She's inside me! She's inside me! She's inside me!" And then silence. He fainted, but his lips kept moving. The same word, again and again, mouthed without breath. Well, Tommy hadn't moved for nearly an hour. They laid him on the couch. But he twitched violently in his sleep, murmuring in a voice too low and too many to belong to just one person. His skin had turned pale, almost translucent, as if something inside was pressing to get out. Emily sat near him, trembling. Her fingers still felt numb from the vision, or whatever that was, in the basement. She kept hearing the song in her mind. Not just hearing it, but remembering it. She'd heard that lullaby before, long before Duskvale. As a child, Daniel handed her a bottle of water. But she didn't take it. "Emily," he said gently, "you said her name. Who is she?" "I don't know," she whispered, "but she knows me." Rachel came rushing in from the hallway. "There's something in the attic." Jason scoffed. "You went to the attic?" "Of course you did. That's exactly how people die in horror movies." Rachel ignored him. "There's writing on the ceiling. Under the floorboards. Not on them, underneath. Like someone scratched it from below." They followed her up. The attic was tight and full of dust. The air tasted like old paper and copper. A single narrow window leaked pale gray light onto the floorboards, revealing scratch marks. Hundreds of them. Long lines, curled symbols, and something worse. Words. Scrawled backwards in a child's messy script. Visible only if you knelt and looked from the right angle. "I never left. She wears their faces. She's been here all along." And in the center of the floor, carved deep in jagged, bloody letters. The blood opens. Daniel stumbled back. "What the hell does that mean?" Emily didn't answer, because her hand was bleeding. A thin line had appeared across her palm. She hadn't touched anything sharp, but it bled steadily. A crimson droplet falling onto the floor. As it hit the wood, the attic shuddered. A low hum filled the air. Not a sound. Exactly, a presence. The boards beneath them began to darken, like ink spreading from Emily's blood. Then came the scream. From below. "Tommy!" They raced downstairs. Tommy stood upright now. His eyes rolled completely white. His body stiff. His mouth hung open, and from it came a voice, not his own. It was old, layered, broken like shattered glass. "The blood has spoken." The door begins to open. She walks again. And then, he collapsed. Silence. But not for long. From outside, in the fog, footsteps. One by one. Slow. Dragging. And then, from all around them, whispered in dozens of voices. "She remembers you. Emily Carter." Jason grabbed the shotgun they'd found in the back room. "We're leaving. Now." They shoved open the front door. And the village was different. The houses stood straighter now. Lights flickered in the windows. Smoke curled from chimneys. It was no longer abandoned. Duskvale was alive. Only, it wasn't the present. They were in the past. Somehow, people in old-time clothes walked the streets. But their faces were blank. Blurred. Flickering like candle flames in the wind. And at the center of the village, the well was glowing. Emily stepped forward. Something pulled her toward it. Rachel grabbed her arm. Emily, stop. But Emily was no longer listening. Because at the edge of the crowd, standing alone, watching her, was a woman with her face. Not just similar, identical. And beside her, holding her hand, was a little girl with hollow eyes. Lily. Emily couldn't move. The woman standing by the well wore a dark green coat identical to hers. Her hair fell in the same loose waves. Even her eyes, same shape. Same sadness. But there was something off. Her smile was too wide. Too knowing. And she wasn't blinking. The little girl at her side, Lily, tilted her head slowly. Like a crow sizing up a carcass. Then she raised her hand. And waved. The fog twisted around them. Forming shapes. Shadows of people who weren't truly there. Whispers coiled in the air like smoke. Rachel stepped beside Emily. Do you see her? Tell me you see her. Emily nodded. I think it's me. Or who I was. Jason muttered. This is a dream. It has to be. This is time travel. Magic. Drugs. I don't know. But it's not real. Then why do you feel her inside your skull? Tommy rasped. He was awake again. Pale and sweating. She's inside all of us now. We opened the blood gate. Emily turned back to the well. The glow rising from it pulsed like a heartbeat, deep. Wet red. With every pulse, the world around them seemed to shift. 1 second they stood in a village square, the next, in a field of graves. Then, the burnt remains of a church. Then, a forest dripping with crows. They were not moving. The world was. Rachel reached out and grabbed Emily's wrist. Her fingers froze. Emily, your skin. On Emily's forearm, beneath the blood-stained sleeve. Symbols were forming, raised like scars. Glowing faintly. One looked like an eye. Another resembled the shape of the well. Jason took a step back. You're marked. Like the girl. Like the villagers. Emily didn't answer. Because she was hearing it again. Not the lullaby this time, but a voice. Hers. Inside her mind. You left me here. You sealed the gate and forgot. But I remember. Emily. I remember everything. The ground beneath them rumbled. Suddenly, the people in the village turned. Every one of them. And looked at Emily. Their faces were clearer now. But not human. Their eyes were empty sockets filled with ash. Their mouths stretched wider than they should. Splitting skin. And they spoke in unison. Welcome home, Mother. Daniel pulled her back. Run. They ran. The village shifted around them. Houses warping into trees. Trees curling into bones. Fog chased them like a living thing. Doors opened where there were no walls. Hands reached from mirrors. One of the crows flew straight into Jason's face. He screamed and swatted it away. But it laughed as it disappeared in a burst of feathers. They found shelter inside a crumbling chapel. Emily slammed the door behind them. It shut with a sound like a dying breath. Inside, the chapel was covered in carvings. Symbols matching the ones on Emily's arm. At the altar, there lay an old book, bound in stitched skin. Pulsing slightly like a living thing. Tommy approached it slowly. This is the Book of the Well. Rachel squinted. How do you know that? He looked at her, eyes empty. Because I've read it. In my dreams. For years. Emily stepped forward. Then tell us. What's happening? Tommy opened the book. Dust and black spores spilled from between the pages. He read aloud. The well is not water. It is mouth. It feeds on memory. On blood. On those who carry her name. She was sealed by the blood of her own. But blood returns. Always. Rachel whispered. Emily, do you have family from here? Emily shook her head. Then hesitated. My grandmother, her name was Lillian. I remember a photo. She always wore an old iron key around her neck. I asked her once what it opened. She said, nothing you want to see. Tommy closed the book. You're the last. A chill spread through the room. The chapel's stained glass shattered inward. Raining shards. From the shadows behind the altar. Something began to rise. Tall, thin, antlered. Its face, a hole. Emily backed away. The creature tilted its head. Welcome back, Emily Carter. The gate is open. The creature loomed over them. Antlers brushing the ceiling. Its hollow face fixed on Emily. She stood frozen, breath shallow, every instinct in her body screaming to run. But something deeper, older, whispered, "Stay." Behind her, Rachel, Daniel, Tommy, and Jason stood in a half-circle, pale and shaking. The creature took a step forward. And then, Emily spoke. "I remember now." Its movements stopped. "My grandmother was from Duskvale. She left as a girl. But before she did, she sealed something away. You." She stepped closer. The markings on her arm flared with golden light. Not the sickly red of the well, but warm. Alive. "My name is Emily Lillian Carter. And I carry her blood. But I carry her heart too." The creature hissed. The sound like wind through a dying forest. Emily opened her palm. Blood pooled again, but this time, it shimmered. Not a curse. A choice. She turned to the altar and pressed her hand to the book of the well. "I won't fight you with fear. That's how you win. You feed on it." She looked up at the creature. Tears in her eyes. Voice steady. "I forgive you." The world shuddered. The fog outside evaporated, sucked upward like smoke returning to the sky. The walls of the chapel brightened. The pulsing red in the floor vanished. The creature screamed, but not in pain. In sorrow. Its body began to crumble into petals, dark red. Like dried roses. The antlers fell away. The hollow face broke into 1,000 glimmering moths. And then it was gone. Only Lily remained. She stood in the doorway. Small and quiet. No longer a shadow. Emily knelt in front of her. "You don't have to stay here anymore." Lily looked up at her. "You found me." Emily smiled. "You were never lost." The little girl reached out and placed something cold in Emily's hand. The iron key. Then Lily turned and walked into the light. She faded, bit by bit, until only the faint echo of her laughter remained. The village began to crumble. Not in violence, but in release. The houses turned to dust. The well sealed shut with a soft sigh. Birds flew again. They stood together in the chapel. Now clean, warm, and full of soft sunlight. Rachel was crying. So was Jason. Daniel held Emily's hand. Even Tommy smiled. "Is it over?" he asked. Emily looked at her arm. The markings were gone. "Yes," she said softly. "It's over." 1 week later, they stood at the edge of the forest, looking down the winding path where Duskvale once stood. Nothing remained now, only trees, flowers, and a faint warmth in the breeze. Emily took one last look at the photograph she'd found in her grandmother's old box. Lillian stood at the well, holding a little girl's hand. She folded the photo and placed it in her jacket. Daniel nudged her gently. "Ready?" Emily smiled. "I was born ready." They walked away together, toward the future. The forest behind them whispered not in fear, but in peace.